Hey, welcome back to the channel. This week I'm going to talk to you about things you should know before you start to play guitar if you want to get into it. Just a couple little tips and tricks, hopefully that can be of some help to help you decide what you're going to do. All right, so let's get at it. Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel. So this week I am going to talk about what to do if you want to learn how to play guitar. What's the best advice I can give? Now, to give you a bit of background, I've been playing now for almost 42 years. I'm not a pro. I consider myself okay. I've played in bands before. I've learned how to play these two instruments behind me, guitar and bass, and I've got a piano there. And I don't have drums here, but I played those for quite some time as well. So I spent a lot of time dabbling around with musical instruments, and one of my passions really is guitar. So I often get a lot of people who will ask me things like, what do I do to get it, what should I do to start learning how to play the guitar? A lot of times I give my advice, and the minute I mention pain, people tend to forget, they just don't want to play anymore. So I'll explain some of that. So basically, when you start out playing guitar, there's many things you're going to go through that really feel different. How to hold the guitar. The first time I put a guitar on my lap, I was, what do I do? Like, it's not a natural motion to play or to play chords or not even know the chords. I just knew there were strings there. And, it took me a while. Back then there was no internet. So actually, funny enough, I learned how to hold and play the guitar and learned about chords and how to play the chords through my mom. My mom played the guitar as a hobby and sang. She was a country and western singer that sang in local bars and whatnot. And funny enough, back then, when I wanted to get into playing, she only had one rule. I could learn on her guitar as long as when she wanted to play it, I had to give it up and give it back to her to play, which was fine. So back then, I was about 16. I was really into Rush. A lot of people know who Rush are. And my mother at the time bought me a really thick chord book for all the Rush albums all the way up to 1982, which was the Signals album. So I took that book, and because I really wanted to learn, I started playing the chords. Knowing the songs, I was able to sing along with the songs, and I didn't have to think about, what part of the song would come next because I was very familiar with them at the time. So what I did was I basically learned chords, and then I started to figure out, what parts of the chords were different strings were playing, if there were notes on and off and where and whatnot. So a lot of what I've learned has been through ear. I haven't really taken any guitar lessons, but a lot of it was trial and error. And back then, the action on the guitar, meaning the distance from the strings to the fretboard, was really high. So I really built up a lot of finger strength at that time, a lot of calluses on my fingers and whatnot. And that was about 2.5 years, and then somebody handed me an electric guitar one day, and I got on that, and I was shocked how easier it was to play, but how much I had built up the stamina within my fingers and my playing fingers and my strumming hand. So there was a lot of learning at that point. I at one point I remember cutting my fingertips and playing while I was bleeding. When you learn how to play guitar, you're not going to hit the chords with this part of your finger. You're going to hit them with this part of your finger right across here. And you're going to get dents. Now, I don't know how well the camera can pick this up, but you could probably see my fingertips are a little shiny, and that's because they've got calluses on them. You build those up over time. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of pain in the beginning, but the more you play, the less it gets painful. My first few days, I actually could only play for about half an hour, and then I built up to the point where I was playing up to 6-7 hours a day. So it's a bit of a learning process. Patience is required. Accept the pain knowing that it's going to go away. There's a lot of reasons to want to play guitar. Me, I just wanted to reproduce the sound that I heard from Rush and other bands. Some guys pick it up for girls. I spent most of my teenage years in a room learning how to play, so that wasn't really motivation for me. But, if you really want to learn how to play it, then you should pick up a guitar and then start working on it. Again, it's going to feel alien at first, but as time goes, it will start to feel natural and normal. So, what to buy? Well, let's switch and I'll get my guitar. So this is my buddy AJ. I call him AJ because that's the initials, the model number that came with it. He's an electroacoustic guitar, so forgive me in my coordination here because I'm still learning this stuff. So these are basically, this is a tuner on here. There's a volume control, bass and treble and whatnot. Very good, very handy. Now, I don't suggest you run out and buy one of these right away. I picked this up, came with a case. It was about $600. But it was a long time coming for me because I really went a long time without an acoustic guitar. And truth be told, it's just nice to sit down and play something where I don't have to plug an amp in and I don't have to keep turning up the amp. And I mean, I do have an amp and I have other guitars with effects and whatnot, but this is really more just about coming home at the end of the day and just winding down. To me, there's nothing more therapeutic or allows me to get rid of a lot of thoughts just by sitting down and playing a chord. So as you get into this, you're probably going to use that as a tool to relax a little, which is a really good thing to do. So let's talk about what to buy. All right, so there are a lot of kits out there that basically have electric guitars, cases, straps, tuners, strings, and picks. I haven't figured out how to put a picture down yet. So if you go to Amazon and do a search for Donner, Donner, they're a pretty reputable brand in terms of beginner instruments. You can get an acoustic guitar pack for under $300. In some cases, under $250. Now, if you're serious about playing, that's certainly one of the options that you're going to take, which I think would be a good one, because it gives you everything you need at the beginning. I highly recommend staying away from electric guitars in the beginning because, quite frankly, you have to bring an amp with you everywhere you go. I mean, if you go up to camping or a cottage or an aunt's or uncle's house, you just bring this with you, and it's got its own volume as a whole that you can enjoy the learning process. So. Few things probably that you should know when you're going to do this to help you along the way. The first thing I would talk about is how do you actually hold the guitar. So if you notice on the bottom of the guitar, you've got a groove here, right? It's a shape of the guitar, but it's also an aesthetic that allows you to put the guitar on your knee. Now, whether you're right or left-handed, sorry, I'm going to move around a bit here, put it on the same knee as your strumming hand, which is this hand that goes down the strings. You'll see some guitar players that'll sit like this. This is more of a classical pose, and this allows for some mobility up here. As you get going through your learning process, you may want to switch to that. For in the beginning right now, I would suggest actually going and putting it on the same leg as your strumming arm. Now, you notice I rest my arm on the top of here. Okay, the reason for that is because you probably can't see it right now, but I've got the stomach pretty close to the guitar close to my stomach. It's pretty easy to do since I have a big stomach, but you notice how I keep the guitar at a 90-degree angle from the floor, okay? Very important. You don't want to play like this. This is not good. Because when you're learning how to play your chords and you're strumming, you're not in a natural position. You're stretching longer than you should. So always keep the guitar 90 degrees to the floor. Now how I achieve that is, right now you can't see it, but my leg here, if I sit here and I put my heel down, my leg drops. And then this guitar starts sliding as I'm playing. So what I tend to do is I either straighten out by sticking my foot on the base of my chair to keep my leg 90 degrees, or I'll get something I can rest my foot on. But the idea is you want to keep your leg straight, keep the guitar close to your neck, your stomach, just rest your arm on it. And the good thing about this is you don't need this arm to hold the guitar. So when you're learning to play your chords, you're not holding up the guitar. It's already taken for you from this standpoint. Now you'll see people that'll have their arms back here or back here, and they play like this. You have to find a comfortable spot for yourself. Now I suggest, because you're going to learn how to strum, is you kind of keep it roughly where I have mine, which is about there, depending on the length of your arm. As I said, the weight is here. It's balanced. You don't even have to have any hands on it, right? So it's just to get comfortable to learn how to approach playing. Now, pain. Yes, there will be pain. There always is. I've been playing for 40-something years. If I don't play every day, I go a couple of days without. When I start playing again, it hurts. But then after about 10 minutes, everything's back to normal, right? Because I have those calluses. I can be honest with you, in my process of learning, there's never been more of a greater reward than actually picking up a guitar and not hurting. It makes me smile because then I can concentrate on other things, in terms of the fretboard, the strings, all of these things. Without the pain, it makes it easier to concentrate. Now, this is your strumming hand. This is going to be what you strum or you finger pick with. Now, there are many options that you can go with. You can play with your fingers. Notice how I'm pulling up and pushing down on the strings. I'm not pulling them out. Oops, sorry. You don't want to do that. Your strumming hand is down the strings, up the strings. When you're plucking, you're pulling up or pushing down on the strings. Now this is handy for when you play songs that are like, that's handy for that. Playing a D chord. That's nice and subtle to play. I sometimes use my fingernail to get a little more volume. I do that because sometimes I'm too lazy to try and find a pick. So, pick or not to pick. This is a pick. You probably all know what a guitar pick is. I don't need to go into that. There are different variances on this pick. There could be thick, thin, or very flimsy. I highly suggest that you don't go with flimsy. You're going to regret it, because what ends up happening is it really amplifies the physical string touching with the pick, and it can really make your playing not sound so good. Now, how you hold the pick. Again, this is a comfort level. I don't suggest that you hold the pick and strum like this. It sounds tinny. If you move your hand and choke it up a little more on the pick, you only need that little bit at the front to go ahead and do it. And I kind of turn my pick a little this way, because then when I play, the pick is actually 90 degrees on the strings, but my arm and my hand isn't. So a pick, there's that, versus if you hold it this way, you don't want that to happen. You want to have a nice acoustic sound where it sounds full. Again, to pick or not to pick, that's entirely up to you how you want to learn. I'll suggest if you're learning in the beginning, you might want to not pick, because this is a little more quieter, and if there's somebody in the house that's going crazy, save the picking until later. Also, when you're playing with your fingers, you're going to develop a skill where you're going to memorize where each string is. And I'll get to the point, if you notice, I'm looking at the camera. Well, I look down there for the chord, but because you develop a skill of remembering. It's almost like piano players who are blind. They tend to know where the keys are by feel. You will do the same thing as time goes. And it's pretty cool. Then you'll start getting into multi-finger picking. Again, that's down the road. These are possibilities that you can work in. I don't want to sit here and show off all kinds of things that you can do, but just to give you an idea of how it's effective. A lot of guitar players, Jeff Beck, for instance, excellent guitar player. Rest in peace, Jeff. He only used his fingers. Mark Knopfler from the Dire Straits only used his fingers. He never used a pick. And these guys are fantastic guitar players. I mean, you can do it on an electric guitar or an acoustic guitar. It doesn't matter. But that's the first thing that you're going to develop over time. When you're strumming, you don't have to go up here and then all the way down here. Keep your distance as close. I use the hole as a guideline here. Your pick is up. If you can get it closer, it makes it much easier for your timing. Your strings won't buzz out because you're really hammering it with the pick. So I would, just keep it casual. I sat here, I remember not here, but I sat in my room one time and I literally, for an hour. And that's just on one chord. Again, as you learn these things, it's going to become easier and it's going to be much more enjoyable. Now, frets. Whenever you hear anybody say, what are frets? The distance between, let's go up here because that's pretty much a nut. It's like a fret, but it's made out of bone. So this distance from here to here, in here, is a fret. These little pieces of wire here, they're fret wires. All right? So when people say, you have to play this note on the third fret on the third string, you're looking at this note right here. So understanding that these are frets, you don't play on the wires. The wires are where the string is touching when you push down in the middle of them to give you that tone. Okay? So always remember the frets. Now you're going to need to know that. I'm going to put a link in the description below for two things. One that's got 3 chords that you can actually hang on a sec, my camera went off. All right, well, enough of that. Let's go here. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna put a link in the description below that provides you with standard chords, explains the fingering of them, all that sort of thing. It's not going to be too technical. It's a great starting place to go. So I highly advise going to that link. Now, tuning the guitar. Tuning the guitar, in this case, it has a tuner built in. I highly recommend that one of these guys is going to be your best friend. All right, whoops. Let me just paste it on here and I'll show you briefly. Okay, so this is a tuner. You see how it reads? I'm not sure how well you can see that because I've got light blaring in here. See the notes it's reading? See? The green means it's in tune. So these, aside from your guitar, are your best friend. Because as you play the guitar, you're going to stretch the strings. The strings are going to stretch and go out of tune when you play notes. If they're new strings, they're going to go out of tune a lot more than if they're used strings. So always having a tuner standing by is a really good thing to have, and you'll find yourself learning how to tune the guitar. Now, if you want to tune the guitar and you have a string that's out of tune, let me just do this again. Okay, so let me just go ahead. You see how that's down to a D sharp? It should be an E. Sorry for the light, folks. You want to turn it and you always want to keep the tension tight on the string. So that's a bit over, right? So what I do is I go past it, so it's now lower, and then I start working my way up towards the E. And it keeps the tension on the string. You never want to go too far down and just loosen strings when they're out of tune. You want to make sure that they actually stay tight on the tuners. So keep that in mind when using a tuner on a guitar. Again, best friend. It comes in all shapes and sizes and colors. I can't recommend one of these more than enough. Okay, so Chords. This is the hard part. So the chords you're going to make are going to be basically strings that you're going to touch the frets where the strings are. Now I'm using a D chord as an example right now. So this is a chord that I always play when I pick up the guitar. I have no idea why. I just do. First thing I do is a D chord. It's just habit, right? But there's one thing I want to show you about using chords. Do you notice how my fingers are bent? So if you look, I have a bend in both knuckles. So what I'm doing is I'm literally touching one string with one finger. Now, if you don't do that, you're going to get... So what you need to do is you need to bend your hand a little, and you're going to find the comfort spot. Some people play like this, some people play like this, some people play like that. I play like this because I have fairly long hands, so I kind of keep my thumb over. But in order for the chord to ring out, you want to make sure that one finger is touching one string. Pinky. Now as you learn more chords, same applies. You can see how my fingers are bent. That's where the calluses come in on the tops of the fingers. You can see now probably that they're bent and creased. That's how you achieve that. If you play like this, you're not going to get there. You have to do it this way. Now, as you learn more chords, you're going to find out, and there are a lot of chords. There's bar chords. Standard chords. You will even change the way you finger your chords. So generally I play a bar chord that's here. I'll play the E chord and I'll leave this finger open, but that's through time. I developed that. That's just another thing to try and make it easier to get from chords to chords. I'll put a link in the description below, as I said, with the chords, the easy chords. I'll also put a link in the description below for a video that's a really good video on how to use one of these tuners. I forget the name, but the individual actually tells you what the names of the strings are. Because we look down at the guitar, we think it's string 1, string 2. It's not. The low, you start at the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because the thinnest string is the first string. So it's little things like that. Chord structure shows you things like that. So I'll put both of those links in the description below, but I highly suggest you go and look at the tuning video as well, because there's no point in me doing one of these. And, if it's already out there, if the information is good. So last point I want to touch on. You're probably going to learn 3 chords. D, G, okay, and then a C. Those 3 chords, my advice is, when you get those chords down where you're actually hitting them okay, see my fingers are bent, practice switching chords. That's the second phase. So, see, I'm even still needing practice. Now, the faster you can switch them, it's not a race. You don't have to go fast, but if you can get them quick together, then what will happen is you can actually play along in the song. And that's just a matter of practicing. Once you learn other chords from that page, practice switching those chords. You will learn as time goes the frets, the chords and the frets. I don't want to go into that because that's not really big beginner stuff. That's like second lesson stuff. But yeah, so those are the tips and the tricks. I'm hoping that this helps out. And thanks for stopping by. And if you're subscribed, thank you very much. And if you feel like you want to leave a comment, by all means. I hope this helped in some sort of way. Okay? Take care and have a great day.